Hey, so I'm actually recording this after I've walked through the lab for this week, but I just wanted to put it up on the beginning here to sort of just give you an idea of why geocoding is useful. So often, up until this point, we have used data that already has some sort of geocode attached to it, like it has a longitude and a latitude, or it has some way of telling ArcMap, hey, I have spatial coordinates to put this thing on a map. And that's really useful. So like we can drop in here and we could add the US states onto our map here. And so if we go ahead and look at this, right, we can see that, the state of Virginia, while having census data attached to it, also has these other things attached to it too that tell ArcGIS what to do. So shape length, shape area, stuff like that, and that tells ArcGIS how to draw it, right? But that's not always going to be the case, right? And often we can do joins. So we've joined stuff to something that already has this data. But that's not always possible, especially when we're dealing with like street addresses, where there's just not going to be the matching is just not possible in that situation. But you can still take that address data. So in this case, maybe zip codes or zip codes and street addresses, and ArcMap knows how to take how to use those and put it in space for us. And so that's why geocoding is really important and really powerful. It's one of the really cool things that you can do with the software. And so that's just sort of what we're going to go through today. We're going to go through a bunch of data, primarily in Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh, that doesn't have these spatial coordinates on them, and we're going to get ArcGIS to put it on a map for us. And so I just wanted to drop this here to give you guys some context for like the importance of why we're doing this, because I don't feel like I covered that sufficiently throughout the lab today. But all right, that's it. Good luck. All right, so I am re-recording this sort of Chapter 8 lab since I ran into a few hitches in class yesterday, and I just wanted to have sort of a clean run through that was much easier to follow, and you don't have to sort of go down the rabbit holes while I try to fix something that I broke. But okay, so this is we're just in 8.1 right now, and what we're going to start doing is we're going to just learn how to do what's called geocoding data, which is taking some data and putting it on the map based on address information. So you could do this using zip codes, which is what we're about to do, and later on we'll do street addresses. And sort of towards the end of this module, we will learn how to sort of fix incorrect data that we're working with. So if someone just makes a typo with the zip code or puts 6 digits in a zip code instead of 5, we'll sort of learn how to fix that and sort of make sure we get as much of our data on the map as we can. So like I said, this is 8.1. And what we can see here is we have the zip codes of Pennsylvania. And we have a list of attendees that went to a conference in Pittsburgh. So Pittsburgh is down here in the southwest. And we can see that not all of these people are from Pennsylvania, but we just have a map of Pennsylvania. So if we're going to put these people up on the map, then we're not going to have everyone. We're not going to be able to put everyone up there because we're not showing California or Ohio. So what we can do really quick is select by attribute, and only we can see how many people are actually from Pennsylvania in our data set. So if we go to state, I'm missing it. There it is, state. State equals, and we can get unique values and drop this down, but I'm just going to do it here, equals PA. We see we have 1,124 out of 1,265. So most of the people, the overwhelming majority, are from Pennsylvania, but we have 1,124 from the actual state. So that gives us an idea of when we match this data and put it up on a map. If we only match 500, then something probably went wrong. But if we matched, 1,120, then we're like, oh great, there's only 4 people that we weren't able to put on the map. So sort of being familiar with your data is really important in a process like this, because it will let you know if something went wrong. This just sort of gets us familiar with what we're working with. I'm going to go ahead and clear these selections for the time being, because we don't really need to have them selected. But okay. And the other thing that we're working with is sort of all of the zip codes within Pennsylvania. So there's a lot of zip codes, sort of associated towns, and bigger towns like Pittsburgh and Philadelphia and probably Harrisburg are going to have more than one zip code associated with them. But that's fine. So with this, what we first need to do is sort of prime ArcMap so it sort of knows where the zip codes are on a map. But to get this attendees data onto our zip data, we sort of have to give it a roadmap. So what we're going to do is we're going to prime ArcMap with the zip code data, and then use that to put our attendees data on the map. So all we're going to do is we're going to go down into exercises and chapter 8. I created a new geodatabase because I've already worked with this one. But you should just have an empty chapter 8 geodatabase here if you're following along. So if we go to new, so you're just going to right click, go to new, and then go to address locator. And what this address locator is exactly what I just said. It will sort of prime ArcMap to help us get this data up there. So click this folder. There's going to be a slight delay. And in this case, we're working with US address 5-digit zip codes. So we're just going to select that, hit OK. And you'll get this error because we haven't given reference data yet, but that's fine. And what we want to do is we're going to use the PA zip data, because this has all of the information for all the zip codes in the area. And we want to make sure we name it. And so this is going to be PA zip. And just click OK. And you'll sort of see it will create our address locator. And it's done. Okay. So it should show up. It should look something like this. And at this point, we can go ahead and geocode our attendees data, put it up on the map. So I have already done this. I'm going to go ahead and remove it really quick just to give you an idea. But to do this, you just go up. First, you're going to have to open a toolbar. And we're going to go up to toolbars and geocoding. And for me, this initially popped out like a free-floating window here, but I really like to just go ahead and snap it up here in the top. I find that simpler to work with. But once we have this available to us, we just go ahead and click your attendees data and go up and hit this empty mailbox. And it should read in by default that the address locator that we just created. If it doesn't, you can go to add and add it in yourself. But it should just be default. And we're going to click OK. You should get here. And if you had multiple data sets that you were trying to geocode, you could sort of select the one that you definitely wanted, and keep it selected on multiple fields here, and you'll see what we're going to be matching on is a zip code. Go down to zip code, and at this point, just sort of leave everything the same. Make sure you name what we want, and so we're going to call this attendees zip, and click OK. And we see we've matched 1,090 of our from our attendees data. And if we remember, we had about 1,120, I think, from Pennsylvania. So that's not bad, actually. So we know that we matched a lot of people got matched. So that's good. That's sort of what we would expect. And this will create a new layer file, and we can mess with this just like we could, or feature class, I guess is what this is called. Creates a new feature class, and we can edit this just like we would edit anything else, right? And here we have a lot of people on the map. And so this conference was in Pittsburgh, and so we see a lot of people are coming from Pittsburgh, but we don't really know how many, right? So each of these dots could represent one person came from that zip code, or could represent 100 people. It's just sort of like if one person came from that place, then they get a dot, right? So what we need to do is create a summary table of this. Excuse me, about to cough. Excuse me. And in order to do that, go ahead and open up our attribute table here. And we'll sort of see this is just our attendee data, but now it has it knows where to put it sort of on the map. And what we want to do is go ahead and take this match address field and click summarize. And so this will sum all of the repeats from these addresses. And I saved that in the right spot. Yep. Okay. So as you can see here, let's see. So some people weren't matched. Okay, so we have Verona, Pennsylvania. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people from Verona came. So if we go into our count address, this data that we just created, then we should see a 5 associated with the zip code 15147. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. 15147 was what we were looking. Okay, Verona, Pennsylvania. 6. Okay, did I miscount that? I may have miscounted that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, I miscounted it. So, right. So you'll see there's 6 for Verona here, and then there is also 6 here, and that is super useful for us because now we can sort of have a better understanding of what the counts look like, right? And now this is sort of where I ran into a hitch in class, because up until this point we would maybe want to take this count data and put it up on the map as a choropleth or a graduated symbol, and we could do that, but for some reason I was running into an issue doing that yesterday, and so I think I found a way to sort of get around it, because the book asks you to join this count address to this geocode result. And I mean, I was trying a whole bunch of different things, and I couldn't get it to work. I had gotten it to work earlier, not in class, and I didn't remember exactly how I had done that. But because what you need to do is, you can try to join these two together, and if you get that to work, that's great. Let me know, because right now I have not been able to actually get it to display correctly. So what you actually should do, and this sort of is reflected not in the text of the book on page 290 where it says your turn, but in the picture at the bottom of 290, it looks like they did not actually join the data to the geocode result like they ask you to do. It looks like they joined it to the PA zip layer file. And so that's sort of what I went through and did. And if we go ahead and look at this spreadsheet, I guess, we go to properties and we see that zip code is stored in a string. So what we can do is go to our count data, and we can see that this is almost certainly a string, right? Because it has letters and stuff in it. We can check it, but it's a string. But it does have the address here at the front, and we can use a trick that we learned in, I believe, 6.2, the homework for 6.2, to pull out a part of that, a part of this match address field, right? So we want this to equal, where is it? Match address, right? But we only want the first 5 letters, quote unquote, numbers in this case, from this field. So what we can do is go ahead, click string here, and we want to use this function. It's called left. Click inside, and then again double click your match address, and then hit comma 5. And what this will do is it will just grab the first 5, starting from the left, the first 5 objects in match address, and it will output that. So boom, here we go. We have all of a sudden a zip code thing, and we can take this and very simply, like we have done before, join it. So we make sure we want to join the count address, join these together, right? And now we can do what the book asks you to do in the Your Turn section on page 290. And we want to count, right? We always want to do quantile. Boom. And you'll see there is, so it's actually coloring some of these backgrounds here too, which maybe we don't want to do. And we can do that. We can change the background. We can go hollow and maybe have a gray outline. And we have it match in. And we turn this layer off. Now we have the map that they ask us to make. So this just sort of took a little bit of sort of thinking, okay, how can we solve this problem? It's not working the way they told us, and so was able to sort of backfill and figure this out. But just to get back on the track, sort of where we were looking at, or sort of to get back on track with the rest of the chapter, I guess. We need to go back and think about, okay, that's fine. Think about all of these attendees that we weren't able to match. Remember, we're missing about 50 or something like that from the conference that we weren't able to put up on the map. And to do that, we just need to click our results and go up to this review and match addresses. So it's the other mailbox. And this will open your interactive match screen. And I find it useful to sort of make this larger. It's easier to work with. And now we're met with all of the unmatched addresses, right? So we could go look at all the addresses. We could look at matched with an 80 to 100, etc. But what we want to deal with is the sort of unmatched addresses at this point. And the book tells us to just go to this sort of object ID 50 because it will give us it will just give us a zip code for this one, because as we can see, there's no zip code data here, right? So if there's no zip code data, we can't put them on the map. But we do know that they live at 414 South Craig Street, Pittsburgh. So we could go look that up on Google Maps or somewhere on the internet and get the zip code data, and it just happens to be 15213. And so you just input it here at the bottom left, complete zip code, and hit tab on your keyboard, and all of a sudden it brings us up one candidate with a match score of 100, and that's perfect for us. So we just go ahead and click match, and our matched count went up from 1091 or 1090 to 1091. So this is just part of what you're going to have to do with data. There's just a lot of data is going to be incomplete, or there's going to be errors in it, and so this is just a part of going back and cleaning up your data. And so we could do that. You could see a lot of these 260 Hunter Lane, North Wales. A lot of these don't have zip codes, so we could just go and look all these up and complete the zip code. And with 50 addresses, if like this is the only issue that we have, then that's not that big of a deal. But pretty straightforward, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to 8.2. And 8.2 lets us do some geocoding at a finer grain detail. So right now we're just putting people at their zip code, but we can also put people at a street address. And so that's that's what we'll be doing for the rest of this chapter. And I don't know what's going on with ArcMap today. As you can see, got not responding. It's running really slow on my computer. I don't know, but hopefully we'll just sit here and it won't crash on us. Okay, here we go. We have Pittsburgh here. And we have, again, this attendees data. This is the same stuff. And we have addresses, state, zip code, etc. And if we do the same thing that we did before, we go to select by attribute, and we go to city equals, we go to unique values. Oh. We see we've got about 794 people from Pittsburgh went to this conference. So that gives us an idea of what to expect when we match. Just as we did before, we want to go ahead and create that address locator, and we're going to base the address locator here on our Pittsburgh streets data, which has sort of address names, places to like the polygon data here on the map and stuff like that. And so we're just going to do that just like we did before and go to new address locator. And so just before, when we did we used zip code, this time we're going to go and use dual ranges and add Pittsburgh streets as our reference, and create it. And once this is done, we can put all of these attendees up on a map and sort of see where everyone is located throughout the city. Once this is done, okay, it's been created. We can also take a look at it. We double click it. You can open up these properties, and this has a lot of useful information that you might need to look at from time to time. And so just be aware that this exists. But Before we actually now put people up on the map, though, there's also one more thing we can do. Say you're creating a map and you have certain points of interest that you would like to sort of display. Then that's pretty easy to do, and you can do that by going up to the Find button and then click Location. And it will use your locator that you already created, but you can go look for a different one if it doesn't load in the one that you want. I mean, at this point, we're just going to look up 306 Penn Avenue, and our zip code is 15201. And we click Find, and we see it gave us this little graphic to show it where it was on the map. And what we can do here, let's see, okay. We can create, we can do a whole lot of stuff. We can add to places, etc. But if you want to add a little symbol on the map, you just go to Add labeled point. And right now, we can't really do much to this. Like, we can sort of look at size and stuff like that. But it acts just like other graphics that we worked with, and we can just go to Ungroup, and then we can edit the individual features. So if we want to make this red and make this red, then that's pretty simple, pretty easy to do. And then all of a sudden we have this thing on the map. Oh, and then so it's not that easy to see, and that's because we forgot to add a mask. So that's again something that we have learned how to do in the past. There you go. And so this is sort of how you could do and go about and add very specific places on a map that you are interested in displaying. But okay, let's get back to sort of the main thing here, and that's taking these attendees and putting them on a map. And so we're just going to go through the geocoding process just like we did before. We select our attendees data and go up to this geocode addresses, and it should again default to our streets. And we want to use attendees. And now we have not just zip code, but we also have address, right? So we want to make sure, address is what we want, zip code is what we want, and we want to export this as a class. Okay, and we've matched 550. And we can see that's not everyone, right? But I think we had about 700 people from Pittsburgh attend, and so we matched 550. So we are missing, about 200 people, but we did get most of them, and they will pop up here on the map. Let's go ahead and make them a little easier to see. There you go. Okay. So again, this is not everyone, and we are going to want to go through the process of sort of fixing and adding data to the map that is messed up. And so we can go back, click our results, and then go to review and rematch addresses, and we can again see all of our unmatched addresses here. And some of these are going to be just not from Pennsylvania, right? So if we sort ascending, maybe we just want to look at people from Pennsylvania. Maybe I actually just want to look at people from Pittsburgh. Okay. And we can see, okay, well, some of these are missing. Here's our our South Craig Street that we had before. And I believe the zip code for that place was 15213. And if we hit tab, okay, so we get this guy. And we can, boom, matched. And it goes up here, right? And so we could do that with a whole bunch of different places. And so, like, we could go through and probably find all of these zip codes and try to fix them this way. But this is obviously not the only issue that we can run into, right? So if we go and look for, I believe it is, it's going to actually be easier to do it this way. Go ahead and find the 120 West 9th Street. And let's say we know something about Pittsburgh, and we know that, well, 9th Street doesn't run west to east, it runs north to south, and so this address can't be west, right? So this is some mistake. Someone input this data and it's just wrong, so we need to fix it. And let's say that we just happen to know that this is south, so we could change that west to an S, I guess, and help fix our data. So I just hit tab, and again, this didn't pop up, so maybe there's also a zip code issue. And so if we went up and looked up the zip code, we would find that this is again this is an error, and when we fix it, boom, we get an address. So it's important to know that just try to check all aspects of an address that you can, and it could be this sort of double issue where it's the street address is wrong and the zip code is wrong. Hopefully that's not the case, but that you will run into stuff like that. So it's important to know that that is an issue. So then let's so you could go through and do some stuff like this, and but sometimes you'll just run into an issue where maybe there's, for some reason, you can't get the matches to work, but you do know where an address is on a map. You can actually just like point and click, like drop a pin where that address is, and it will put them on a map for you. So we can do that with, let's see, it says object 1017 right here. We scroll over, and in this case we just don't have any data for it. We have a zip code. So we know where that zip code is. It's Pittsburgh, and zip codes are fairly small, so we could put them within their, like this case, it might not be that big of a deal to just drop them somewhere in their zip code, and they're still going to be pretty close to actually where they live. And like Dr. Gimple has talked about in the social sciences, like being 500 feet off or half mile off is often not the biggest case for us, and so given that we just know the zip code data, we could let's just go ahead and put this person in their zip code. And the book wants us to go over it already knows this is the zip code right here in this area, and it wants us to put them on Canada Street, and I just happen to know that I believe that this is Canada Street or this is Canada Street. I think it's this one. Okay, so sometimes it won't let me just select it as a one-off. But what I can also do is do select by attribute, right? And we can just look up name equals Canada, and boom, get our selection that way. In this case, we don't actually need to select it, but say you were sort of back out here and you didn't know where it was, it would let you sort of select it somewhere in the city, and then you could zoom to that selected feature, which is something we've done before. But so now let's just go ahead and drop this person here within their zip code, and we've just chosen Canada at random. Let's get back down to, so we have this observation selected, and we just click pick address for map, and then we can just boom, right click and pick address, and you can see it actually stuck him over here. That's not an issue really, because we don't care exactly where they live. Maybe we do. It depends on the question we're asking, but in this case it doesn't really matter. We just sort of need to know like roughly where they are in the city, maybe within a quarter mile or a half mile or something like that, and that's totally doable given the density of the city. Our zip codes aren't going to be too expansive. So that's just another way we can put people on our map, right? Okay. So now that we are done, we're sort of done with this point. And what we can do is go ahead and go on to 8.4. Now that we have 8.4 open, we can sort of see we're working within a small snapshot of Pittsburgh, and we open our this clients list. So this is maybe a client list for some small business, and we can see we're all in the same zip code. So when we geocode this data, when we can't match it all, we may not want to just place people randomly within our polygon, because we're only our frame or our reference is so much smaller, right? We're not working with all of Pittsburgh. We're working a very small chunk of Pittsburgh, so placing someone randomly is actually going to be less useful to us than it would have been otherwise. So we're going to keep that in mind. But the process is again just the same as we've done before. We're just going to create a new address locator. We're going to choose dual ranges. We're going to use the streets as our reference layer and create a address locator. There we go. And the process again, just the same. We're going to go up to geocode address. It should pre-populate that address locator we just created. We're going to use our client's address. Yep, these look right. And we want to call this our customers. Okay, so we've matched 11 out of 16, which is actually one less than the book gives you, which is probably fine. I had to go in and sort of futz around and fix a few things, so I may have accidentally broken one match, but that's not an issue. We might fix it sort of as we go through this process. But let's go ahead and go right into our rematch screen. Since we've only matched about half of our customers here, so that's maybe a problem. So let's sort of try to figure out what that issue is. So if we scroll down and we look at this number 5, we're here on 490 Penn Avenue, and maybe we look it up. Obviously, we think the zip is okay because the zip doesn't change. We know 490 exists. But for some reason, ArcMap's not able to find it. Maybe this part of the road was extended and changed slightly since we since we have sort of created this shapefile. But what we can do, since right now we're not getting any candidates, and that's because right now the match score is set to 75. So you have to be a very, very close match in order to even show up for us. So what we can do is actually drop this down to 0, and we can get all of the matches that we want, or that we have. And so we can see that our highest matches here are like 500 and 526 pin av. And those are pretty close. And if we sort of, with this one selected, we can see where that is here on the street. So this yellow one is the one that is 500 pin av. And if we know something about the way that addresses work, this is an even address, then we're pretty sure 490 is going to be somewhere over here on the left, right? And sort of 426 is maybe going to be right here. So we've got 426, 500, and then we think 490 must be around here somewhere. But for some reason it's not showing up. So in order to sort of fix this, what we can do is we can go ahead and select pin avenue, which is sort of these chunks right here. I think it's just this one, right? This one. We're getting a little bit right here. And then we can open our streets data to take a look at that, right? And we can see, again, yeah, this is pin av. And scrolling over, we can notice that we're missing some data here. So this LF add, LT add, RF add, and RT add are what are called Tiger style street numbers. And this is data that you can go get on the census website. And what this does is it just sort of tells, it's a very standard way of giving computer instructions and telling it, okay, this is how addresses are split up on this street. So as new roads are created, you're going to have to get new addresses, right? So maybe this pin avenue was extended recently, and we just don't have this didn't exist. So, and so what we need to do is sort of fill these in so that ArcMap knows what to do with it. And what we do to do that is you're going to have to go up to Customize and Toolbars and get this editor set up. So I've dropped mine right here. You feel free to put it wherever you want. And you just click it and click Start Editing, and you want to choose Streets. And what we're going to do is just sort of add in this data. So let's just say we went ahead and went and got this data from the Census Online. This first one is going to be 498. The next one is 474. Then 499 and 475. And we can go to Stop Editing. We want to save our edits. And now this streets data contains more information about Penn Avenue so that we can put more addresses on it. And so to actually fix this now, though, we need to go ahead and update our reference, our street references, right? So if we go into here, we can just go to Rebuild. And what this will do is it will go back and look at our streets data and take into account any new information we've added to it, and make sure that it will now update, be able to update stuff that it didn't know existed before. And if we open this up and we scroll over, we can see all of a sudden 490 Penn Ave has a 100% match score. And so adding those Tiger street numbers allowed us to get that get that worked out. So we click match, and we have bounced up to 12. So sort of making sure that whatever address references you are using, you want to try to make sure they're up to date, they're not missing data, because you'll run into issues like that. But there's one last thing that we need to cover really quickly, and that is you'll see right here in the street names, there are things that actually don't look like street names. They're like place names. So one PPG Place, or 2 Gateway Center, 2 PPG Place. These probably aren't actual addresses. They're they're place names, right? So Tidings Hall has this issue too. So like we used to be able to get things delivered just to Tidings Hall. USPS was like, okay, well, yeah, I know where that is, so we can get there. But recently they needed us to actually create an address so that they could deliver things. And so, but the sort of rub of that is Tidings Hall is used as primarily the way to refer to where GVPT is located. So if you need to send anything to Tidings Hall, or if you're referencing Tidings Hall, often you just won't see that address. You'll see the place name, and that might, like, if you're working with campus buildings, that's certainly the way that things are going to be referred to. You're not going to refer to McKeldin Library by its address, right? You're going to refer to it as McKeldin Library. But these places do often have actual addresses. We just don't know what they are, and we don't talk about them a whole lot, and they're not going to show up in our data set because we're not going to recognize them that way. But there are ways for us to make sure that these still get displayed on our map properly, and that is what's called we do that using something called an alias sheet. So if we go ahead and we go into the Pittsburgh file here, and we go to CBD, we have a building names alias spreadsheet, and we can see here these building names do have addresses to 200 4th Avenue, 197 Stanwix Street, stuff like that. And we can add this alias table to our matching to help us match better, right? So in that sort of interactive rematch screen, we just can go down to geocode options, and you'll see right here, place name table place name alias table, and we just select our alias thing, and we choose the alias field. So this is what the building is called, and we want to make sure we have the address and zip, and then we just click OK. And now we can see, if we scroll over and we look at 2 PPG Place, all of a sudden we've got a place to match it. And if we look at 2 Gateway Center, we can match that one too. And 1 PPG Place, look, so so these place name aliases then all of a sudden become very easy to match, and we're up to 16 matched. So that's it. It's not that hard, but can be super useful to sort of adding data to our maps that don't already have like geo addresses on them, right? So cool. If you have any questions, let me know. Bye. This is it.